All right, so Module 8 Homework 2, it's talking about rational equations and problem solving. So in this section, we're going to solve for a formula for a specific variable, and we're going to solve word problems involving rates. So starting off, we are solving formulas for a specific variable. We did the same exact problem in test 1. So this should be nothing new. I know it kind of looks intimidating to a lot of people because there's letters instead of numbers, but literally we're doing the same exact thing that we did on test 1, same exact thing that we would do normally. So it says solve the equation for t. So do you see it? It's kind of like coming, stuff that's on test 1, it's coming back, so it's kind of like coming full circle. So it's kind of cool. So solve the equation for t. I want to get t by itself. I want to get t equals. We have r equals 3 over 2 t plus 37. So I want to get t equals. I want to get t by itself. So let's work from the outside in. What's the furthest thing away from t on this side of the equation? 37. Let's get rid of 37. It's adding. So what's the opposite of adding 37? How do I get rid of it? Subtract 37. So we're going to subtract 37 from both sides. So on the left side, we're left with r minus 37. Those are not like terms, I cannot combine them, so we're going to leave it as r minus 37 equals 3 over 2 t. So we're close, almost there. Last step to get t by itself. What's happening to t? It's being multiplied by 3 over 2. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 3 over 2?
Multiply by the reciprocal.
Okay, pause that thought. We're going to divide by 3 over 2, which is multiplying by the reciprocal. So let's divide both sides by 3 over 2. To cancel those out. So we are left with r minus 37. Hold on one second, sorry. R minus 37 over 3 over 2. That's a complex fraction like we just did on one of the previous homeworks. So let's rewrite it as r minus 37 using the division symbol, so divided by 3 over 2 equals t. So we got t by itself, which is good. We just need to kind of simplify it a little bit. So I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to flip it around and say t equals r minus 37 divided by 3 over 2. So how do we divide fractions? Multiply by the reciprocal. We can do stay, change, flip. The first fraction staying the same. Our operation is changing from division to multiplication. And we're multiplying by the reciprocal, so we can flip that last fraction. So we have t equals r minus 37 times 2 over 3 so I can multiply in any order, so it might be easier for us to write 2/3 times r minus 37. Final answer. Notice in my math, this is super important. Yeah, because we had to flip it. Yeah, stay, change, flip. Stay, change, flip. No, you're good. Thank you for catching me, though. Stay, change, flip. So t equals 2 over 3 times r minus 37. Be careful, because my math lab, this is super important, because everyone does this, and it's like, I got the right answer, but it marked it wrong. So if it's uppercase, you have to leave it uppercase. If it's lowercase, leave it lowercase. So on here, we plug this into my math lab. You have to do uppercase r, because the problem has uppercase r. If it's lowercase, leave it lowercase. Questions on this one? So same thing like we've been doing, solving.
I want to touch that next page.
We could do it.
No, I mean like slope of the line. No.
So let's try another one. Other questions before we move on. So solving the equation for c this time. So we want to get c by itself. We want to get c equals. We have I equals v minus c all over L. So I want to get c by itself. Good, I want to get rid of this L first. The L is being divided. So we are going to do the opposite. We are going to multiply both sides by capital L. So that way those cancel. So we're left on the left-hand side with Li equals V minus C. Li equals V minus C. Getting C by itself.
Subtract the B.
Good, subtract V. V is positive, so in order to the opposite, I need to subtract V from both sides. So that way they can cancel. So we're left with Li minus V equals negative C. Li minus V equals negative C. Notice these are not like terms. I cannot combine them, so we're just leaving it as Li minus V equals negative C. Last but not least, I need to get rid of that negative. What is that negative doing to C? Adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing?
Multiply.
Multiplying, so I need to do the opposite. We're going to divide both sides by a negative 1. Notice I'm dividing the left whole side and the right whole side by negative 1. So we're left over, coming up here, with Li minus V all over negative 1 equals C. So we got C by itself. Just one little last thing. I'm dividing everything by negative 1, so both terms are being divided by negative 1. So I can say Li over negative 1 minus V over negative 1 equals C. Moving that C over, switching it around. Li divided by negative 1.
Negative L.
Just negative Li. Negative V divided by negative 1. The two negatives cancel out and will give us
V.
plus V. So C equals negative Li plus V. We simplified it. We got C by itself. Boom, we're done. C equals negative Li plus V. Notice those are all capital letters.
Careful, you're using the next one though. You know,
Yep, the next one has capital and lowercase, so you have to be careful.
Bless you. Bless you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you. All right, so let's do the next one. Questions for me on this one?
I was preparing for a third one.
I know, me too. So this next one is one that was exactly the same as test 1. So solving for h, getting h by itself, we have s equals h times a plus f all over 2. So we're wanting to get h by itself.
Times 2.
Good, let's get rid of that 2. It's the furthest thing away from the h. It's being divided, so in order to get rid of it, we can do the opposite. We can multiply both sides by 2. So we're left with 2s equals h times a plus f. Be careful, everyone wants to distribute here, but we want to get h by itself. What's happening to h?
It's being multiplied.
It's being multiplied by what?
A plus F.
A plus f. So let's get rid of that a plus f. How do I do that? Divide by a plus f. Good. So dividing both sides by a plus f, we're left with 2s all over a plus f equals h. Done. We got h by itself. Final answer. 2s all over a plus f equals h. We got h by itself. If you want to flip it around, that's fine too. H equals 2s all over a plus f.
That looks like an N.
Either way. Is that better for you? All right, questions, comments, concerns for me on this one. We have one more of this type.
One more easy ones.
One more of this type. All right, going to that next page. All right, so this problem says solve for W. We have R equals AW all over A plus W. We want to get W by itself, I see we have two W's up here. The first thing I'm thinking though is there's fractions. Let's get rid of the fractions so we can start moving to get at least the W's together so that we can get the W's by itself. So if this is dividing by A plus W, to get rid of our fractions, we can multiply both sides by that A plus W. That way those A plus W's cancel out. We are left with A plus W times R equals AW. Again, I can't get those W's together, so let's just kind of keep working at it. Let's distribute this R. Notice it's capital R. So R times A plus R times W equals AW. So now at least I could see that I can move this RW over here to the other side with the AW, and at least my W's are on the same side. So let's subtract RW from both sides. That way RW minus RW cancel each other out. We are left with RA equals AW minus RW. RA equals AW minus RW. So now looking at this, both terms have a W, so it's kind of like a GCF. So we can factor out that GCF of W. So let's bring it up here. If we have RA equals AW minus RW, they both have a W that I could factor out. Factoring out that W, we're left with A minus R. Now getting W by itself, I just have to move this A minus R. The A minus R is being multiplied by W, so I can divide both sides by A minus R to cancel those out. And we are left with RA all over A minus R equals W. We got W by itself, so that is our final answer. W equals RA all over A minus R. So our last type of examples deal with rates and proportions. It says a camel can drink 15 gallons of water in 10 minutes. At this rate, how much water can the camel drink in 14 minutes? Remember that rates can be expressed as fractions. So that gives us this rate, 15 gallons of water in 10 minutes. This is a rate. So I could write this rate as a fraction. So 15 gallons in 10 minutes. Notice that I have my units. I'm writing my gallons and my minutes. At the same rate, so at the same rate means equals. How much water, so how many gallons, I don't know how many gallons, let's call it X gallons. Notice gallons is on top, it's gonna stay on top. Can the camel drink in 14 minutes? Minutes at the bottom. So gallons are on top, minutes are on the bottom at the same rate, so these two rates are going to equal each other. So first thing, let's do this kind of like mathematically how we've been doing stuff, and then we'll look at a more familiar method of solving this. So getting X by itself, X is being divided by 14. And let me just kind of maybe rewrite it. We'll come back with just the numbers, we'll come back and put the units back in. But 15 over 10 equals X over 14. So getting X by itself, X is being divided by 14. So if I multiply both sides by 14, I can cancel out those 14s and get X by itself. This is the same thing as saying 14 over 1. So that way whenever I multiply fractions, 14 times 15 will give us 210. So coming over here, 210. All over 1 times 10 is 10 equals X. 210 divided by 10 will give us 21. So 21 equals X. 21 was gallons, so that's saying in 14 minutes the camel's going to drink 21 gallons. So make sure that you put that unit of gallons. So that was our first method. This other method is a way that you've probably seen a lot more often. So writing it over here, 15 over 10 equals X over 4. It's a proportion. Does anyone know another way of solving proportions? Cross multiply. Bingo. Oops. So this is going through the same thing like we've been doing, but a little trick is we can cross multiply. So x times 10 is 10x equals 15 times 14, which is 210. So basically we get to the same thing that we got over here. So dividing both sides by 10 to get x by itself, we still get x equals 21 gallons. So either way you do it, usually most people cross multiply, so I'm going to do the next two as cross multiplying, but I wanted to show you why we got cross multiplying. It's not magic. We're really doing the same thing. We're just kind of getting rid of the fraction sooner. We can only do this when it's a proportion too, by the way, when it's one rate equals another rate. Questions, comments, concerns from you before we do the last two?
Good time.
Ooh. So in 2005, 11.7 out of every 50 employees at a company were women. If there are 47,780 total company employees, estimate the number of women. So let's write this rate as a fraction. We have 11.7 out of every 50 employees. So 11.7 women out of 50 total employees. So at the same rate, so equals, if there are 47,780 total company employees is at the bottom of our fractions, how many women? So X women. So notice women's on top for both fractions, employees is on the bottom for both fractions. So we now have a proportion, so we can cross multiply to solve. So we get x times 50, 50x, equals 11.7 times 47,780. I got 559,026, 026. Do we agree? Thank you. And then getting x by itself, how do I do that? Divide by 50, both sides. Thank you. And we are left over with x equals 11,180.52. But I can't have, by the way, x is women, so that's women. I can't have 0.52 of a person, so let's round it to the nearest whole number. So let's round that 0. Looking next door is a 5. So we know if it's 5 or higher, it rounds up. So we have about, and that's what that squiggly equal sign means, about 11,181 women. We have one more. Questions on this one? Last one. A giant tortoise can travel 0.12 miles in 1 hour. At this rate, how long will it take the tortoise to travel 1 mile? So here's our first rate, 0.12 miles in 1 hour. So 0.12 miles in 1 hour. So 0.12 miles over 1 hour equals, at this rate, how long would it take a tortoise to travel 1 mile? So miles is up top. So 1 mile over x hours. I don't know how many hours, so we're going to call it x. Our proportion is set up, so we can now cross multiply. So 0.12 times x is 0.12x equals 1 times 1, which is 1. Getting x by itself, I can divide both sides by 0.12. And we're left with x equals 1 divided by 0.12, which I got 8.33333 hours. I think this one says round to the nearest tenth, so that means 1 decimal place. So we're going to round it to the 3. Looking next door is another 3. So it's not bigger than 8, so it's going to stay 8.3 hours.
What if you just put the bar over the top? Like
Yeah, you can do that. My math lab, I think, tells you whenever you put in the box, it'll say round to nearest tenth. But yeah, you're right about the bar. But just to satisfy my math lab's neediness. So that is all of Module 8 Homework 2 notes.